Now the first topic is poisons and other natural products. So first of all, let's think about what is a poison. Poison sounds like some bad material to our body. Our body is part of a biological part, and poison is affecting somehow badly to our body. So this is perfect the tool or perfect material for chemical biology study. So if you look at Wikipedia, Wikipedia says the poisons are some substances in case we take sufficient amount that it can cause some problem to our body, and the mechanism can be chemical reaction or other activity on the molecular level, and those kind of toxic other materials are defined as poisons. Then we can think about how strong is one poison. So there are many different kinds of poisons, so that's why maybe the different other strengths we need to define. And can you recognize this fish? This fish name is a fugu, and in Japan or in Korea, may not be in China I guess. So this fish is a very popular, the sashimi raw material. It's quite tasty. Problem of this other fish as it has highly toxic material it generates as kind of natural defense mechanism. And the toxic material the fugu generate is called as a tetrodotoxin. And the structure of a tetrodotoxin is like this. It has a multicyclic structure and looks like quite complicated and also looks like quite unstable. Maybe that's why it can cause some severe chemical reactions in the biological system. How toxic it is? The unit of this toxicity is called as LD50, and that's a lethal dose 50. It is defined as 300 microgram per kilogram. Here the kilogram is host the weight. Let's say it can be either our body or maybe other animal which is tested for this toxicity test. So if we have 1 kilogram of the body weight, and if you take 300 microgram of this material, then half of us die. That's the definition of LD50. 1 kilogram sounds like it's not like a really realistic number we can easily can understand. So if I convert this into 60 kilogram, let's just say this is average adult the man's the weight, then this is approximately 20 milligram. That means if you take this tetrodotoxin material 20 milligram, then half of us may die. 20 milligram is quite small amount, and this material is quite toxic. So this LD50 is called as lethal dose 50. And if we take this amount, half of the experimental subjects may die. This is the definition of LD50. For the experiment to measure this LD50, in other terms, this lethal dose 50, it can be called as a median the lethal dose. Maybe multiple animals is used for this test, and then increasing amount of dose is given to the animals. And then here the y-axis is percent responding, means this is death. This is 100% death. Now along the line, if you increase those dose, now you have a better chance to kill those animals. And then it reaches here, then this is saturation point, 100% death. Then LD50 can be defined here. 50% of those experimental subjects survive, or the 50% of them are died, and this concentration here, this concentration is called as LD50. So that means the lower of this number, what do you think? Is it more toxic or less toxic? Yeah, the lower number of LD50, that material is more toxic. Even with a smaller amount of this material, you can kill half of the subject. Here is table of some of those very well known other toxic materials. The first one is mercury. Mercury is a heavy metal, and we know it's quite toxic to the human body. So for the human body, so mercury LD50 is approximately 2 grams. That's quite a good amount. So something you can see Mercury is the only liquid status of the metal among those the element we know in the periodic table, and we can see those maybe those small ball of those mercury. But the dangerous part is this mercury can evaporate, and even we do not touch physically of those mercury ball, still there is a chance we can be intoxicated. How about the second one? Arsenate. Interestingly, this arsenate has been the quite popular poison to kill your enemies in human histories, and the amount you need is a little less than 1 gram. So for adult, about 1 gram of those arsenate can kill one person. The reason why this other arsenate has been so popular is this arsenate, if you mix them together with the food or drink, it doesn't have any smell, it doesn't have any other taste. That's why it's easy to use. So in human history, especially the palace or the kingdom history, if you wanted to kill your enemies, political enemies, this has been used quite often. Maybe those deaths of all the kings and queens we know, maybe half of them were killed by this material. And this material can be fed for a long time period, so slowly you can kill your subject. It's quite bad. But we are studying about those toxic materials science, and important thing is the strength of this the toxic material is still to kill one person you need 1 gram. It's something tangible amount. Cyanide is considered as kind of a highly toxic material in the chemical lab we use. Still, that's some good amount, about 400 milligram of amount that we need to kill one person. Can you recognize some of those other names? Let's say venom. This is from the spider, or like a snake. This kind of material is quite toxic, yes. 8 milligram or even 1 milligram of those material. If they bite us and they inject this material into our body, about 1 milligram of amount, it can kill. So it's quite toxic. And let's keep going. How about the sarin? Is it familiar to you? Sarin gas has been used by some crazy religious people in big metropolis the city in Asia. Have you heard? And do you know which city was it? Yeah, that was Tokyo in Japan. It was 1995, and this sarin gas was released in subway station, and then it killed about 12 people, and also the 50 people was severely injured, and thousands of people had the temporal problem of the division problems. And the LD50 value of this is about 1 milligram. If you take 1 milligram of this other material, half of us will die. It's quite toxic material. So let's keep going here. Maitotoxin, we will see again soon. And which one is most the toxic material? This one. Botulinum toxin and LD50 value, can you count? 0.00006 milligram per person. Wow, how much is this? This is 3 here and 3 again here. So it's 3 here, then 0.06 microgram. And going down further, this is 60 nanogram. That's why we want to be familiar with this small unit. So gram and milligram, that's 0.1%, right? 1 over 1,000. And then the next level was microgram, and then the next one was nanogram, and what was next? It's a picogram, right? Picogram and femtogram. So those kind of a unit, rather than we call 0.00006, it would be easier we communicate with 60 nanogram. Anyway, this botulinum toxin is amazing. It's really, really toxic. But very interestingly, this material is quite popular to people too, with a different name. That name is Botox. Have you heard? Of course, I believe you have heard this name. Botox has been used for making people looking younger by removing those wrinkles. How does it work? This botulinum toxin is a neurotoxin. That's why it can inhibit your motion to change or to make a face or to make a wrinkle, it inhibits those motion. That's how looks like the skin is kind of spread out and it looks like younger. But that means at the same time, you cannot make your own expressional changes of those other muscle part. That's why they look like quite the stuff, like it looks a little dummy. Anyway, this material has been very popularly used for those kind of the cosmetic purpose. But at the same time, again, this material may be the most toxic material, most dangerous material known to human being. That's why this material has been used for or prepared for very powerful biological weapons. This molecule is the largest and one of those most toxic organic molecule known to human beings so far. Have you ever seen this molecule? And can you guess the name of this molecule? This molecule's name is Maitotoxin. And this was isolated from algae from the sea. And molecular weight of this molecule is over 3,000. That's quite the huge molecule, and maybe biggest organic molecule, one of those biggest organic molecule known to human. And the LD50 of this molecule is about 8 microgram per other person. So it's a quite toxic molecule and quite complicated, and maybe the biggest molecule ever been challenged to synthesize chemically. So this synthesis has been tried by the Casey Nicolau group for many years. And if you look at this structure, how many people do you think you need? And how long does it take? Most likely, maybe one person make this part, second person, third person, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. And working together, so make this part over 2 years, and then assemble them, maybe over 5 to 10 years of time, maybe it can be synthesized. The synthetic challenge has been tried over many years. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, due to the lack of funding, seems like they kind of put hold of the synthesis the project of this molecule. Anyway, this is Maitotoxin. This is the structure of botulinum toxin. And molecular weight, can you read? Wow, it's 100,000, almost 150,000 at the Dalton. And this molecule is not just organic molecule. This molecule is actually proteins. So now this protein molecules, botulinum toxin, molecular weight is huge. It's not small molecule anymore, but still the LD50 is super low. So this is only 60 nanogram of material can kill one person. Now if you have 1 gram of this material, and if it has been distributed evenly, how many people it can kill? Can you calculate? 1 gram of botulinum toxin, how many people can be died? Okay, I promise you will see this problem in the next classes, the first quiz. Okay, you don't need to put up the answer for now, but you may need to calculate. Maybe I may change the number a little, then you cannot use the memorize the number. Okay? Yeah, let's see. Can we see some of those popular material in our daily life? So let's say coffee. What is most important ingredient in the coffee? That's caffeine, right? Maybe this is the ingredient we pay attention to. So anyway, 1 cup of coffee, how much of the caffeine inside there? If the coffee size is 200 milliliter, it's kind of a small cup, then the caffeine content is about 100 to 200 milligram. That's quite high. And how about the decaffeinated coffee? Depending on the dose technique, it can be maybe 1% or maybe 5%, no, 10%. about 1% to 10% range of the caffeine is remained in decaf coffee. These days, the technology to make a decaf coffee is very well developed, and frankly, I cannot differentiate those two tastes. You can try. If you go to the Starbucks and they prepared those beans, one is for regular coffee and the other are the bean, and they pre-treated to make those decaf coffee, and they use two different beans. And if you order decaf coffee, and they make you using the different coffee bean, and the taste I cannot distinguish. Anyway, here we are talking about the toxicity of those different materials. Caffeine is a safe material. If we take too much caffeine, can it kill us? If it does, then we can calculate those LD50, right? So let's see of this the basic number here. If you take quite strong coffee, and then if it's a 200 milliliter, then that's about 200 milligram. Okay. Now let's see the table. Now here the table. When it was tested in the red, and those converted number of LD50 is per person, let's say, how much is it? It's about 11 gram. 11 gram. Then when we had 200 milliliter of coffee, so it has a 200 milligram. If we take the big size of the coffee from Starbucks, and let's assume that's like 1 liter, then 1 liter of coffee may have 1 gram of caffeine. Ooh, now we can count how many cups of those big the size of coffee can kill us. How much is it? It's like 12 cups. If we drink 12 cups of the coffee, then it can kill us. Caffeine can be potentially quite dangerous material too. It doesn't have activation the power for our brain. That's why we drink the coffee. And wow, it has some significantly low number of LD50. It can kill us. How about the other one, very popular one? Let's say here, nicotine. It's from the smoke, the cigarette, right? Interestingly, nicotine LD50 value here is about, how much is it? It's a 3 gram per person. Very interestingly, nicotine, when it's tested in the rat, that was a 3 gram, but when it was tested in mice, it's less than 10%. It's only 200 milligram. Rat and mouse looks like they are kind of a similar animal to us, but some of those, the metabolism is quite different, and if they smoke, maybe rat can be much better smoker than mice. They can survive much better. More than 10 times of those nicotine material they can handle. Interesting, isn't it? Even some of those very popular and considered to be very safe drug like aspirin. Aspirin is also, if you take 12 gram at one dose, then potentially it can kill half of us. So many of those known biologically active molecules, they have significantly low LD50, potentially can kill us. Now let's say if your experiment is measuring nicotine's LD50 and between two different animals, let's say rat and mouse, then now here, if this is your experimental other data, now can you tell the blue color and pink color, which one is a rat and which one is a mouse? Can you? Now first of all, you can see for which animal it was the more toxic. Then you can measure those LD50 the values, and you should be able to tell which one is which. One of those important ability you guys need to learn is the understanding or interpreting those experimental data. Then you should look at those y-axis carefully and also x-axis unit, and understand, at least even though you don't have the other reference the numbers, by looking at those different the graph here, you should be able to catch which one is more toxic, more effective kind of result you should be able to get out of it. Okay. Now here, which one is mouse? I wish you got the right answer. Yeah, it is blue one. blue one has much lower LD50 than pink one, right? So that means this material is more toxic to this blue subject, that is mouse, than the other one should be the red. Then let's think, how much of those caffeine material in one cigarette? Interesting question, right? Have you ever thought about it? Here's the answer. If it's a strong one, Marlboro Red, if you don't smoke, for your reference, Marlboro had usually the cigarette, if it's a strong one with a high nicotine contents, it has red color. So one cigarette has 1.22 milligram. Then one pack is a 20 cigarette, then one pack has 20 milligram. Marlboro Light, it has about half or a little less than half of those material, and this is the general contents of the nicotine. Do you remember how much was the nicotine's the LD50? For mouse, it was 200 milligram. Then, for mouse number, when it was converted to human, there was a 200 milligram. Then how many the cigarette can kill one person? How many pack? One pack was about 20 milligram and about 10 pack. If you smoke 10 pack in a row, maybe half of you can die. Interesting calculation, right? There is another way of taking nicotine into our body. What is it? Yeah, it's the nicotine patch. Nicotine patch has been popularly used when you try to quit smoking. So if you quit smoking right away, there's a so-called withdrawal symptom happens. So to minimize those withdrawal symptoms, we put the nicotine patch and provide some nicotine during the time to make it easy for practicing those the stopping the efforts. Now, one nicotine patch, it has, wow, it's quite high. It's 21 milligram dose of the nicotine it contains. So LD50 value from the mouse data is about 200 milligram. Ooh, how many patch can kill you? If you put 10 patch at the same time, and if the absorption is quite efficient, wow, half of you can die. Well, many people, when they tried to quit the smoking, they use this nicotine patch. Unfortunately, many of them actually, even they had this nicotine patch on, but still they smoke. Then what's the result? You take quite higher amount of nicotine into the body. It can be more dangerous. You feel, wow, this is more effect. You feel dizzy, kind of things. Anyway, key point is nicotine is quite toxic material. Now, shall we look at some of those food material that we consider usually is a safe material, should not be toxic material. Okay, so let's look at this table. Here, the water's LD50. If you measure, what is the unit? Now here, pay attention that this is not milligram anymore. Now this is quite safe material. It's a gram. Now 5,000 gram. 5,000 gram. Density of water is 1, right? Then 5,000 gram is 5 kilogram. 5 kilogram is approximately 5 liter. If you drink water 5 liter at one drink, then it can kill you. 5 liter. That's quite interesting, isn't it? When you said for drinking coffee, how many cups of coffee can kill you? It was about 12 cups, large one. Assuming that is 1 liter, that was a totally 12 liter. So to kill yourself or commit suicide, if you drink 10 cups or the 12 cups of coffee, in the middle of the way, about the half drinking, you die. Not because of the caffeine, because of overdose of water. Interesting, right? How about the other sources? Sucrose is kind of a common the sweetener that we use. Sucrose also, if you take about 2 kilograms, you die. Actually, it can be quite tough to take 2 kilograms of the sucrose. How about the vitamin C? Some people take 10 gram, 20 gram of those vitamin C, believing that there is no other strong side effect and actually can help for health. But those the LD50 value is about 700 gram. Okay, if you take a 20 gram to get effect, the 700 gram can kill you. Still, it's relatively safe. You have more than 10 of a safety the index here. How about the methanol? Oh, sorry, ethanol. This is main component of our alcoholic drink. Now, how much is it? It's about half a liter. If you drink a half liter of ethanol, you can die. Usual the whiskey, like a Scotch whiskey, the percent of alcohol is about 40%. That means the lethal dose of whiskey is just only 1 liter. Wow. Some people drink a lot, right? Now, ethanol, if you drink 1 bottle of 1 liter of whiskey in short amount of time, it can potentially kill half of the drinkers. How can you explain? Maybe several reasons we can say. The drinkers, they may not drink so fast. They may not drink in 10 minutes just to drink a whole bottle of those whiskey. They drink quite the long over the time. And then some of those observed that the ethanol was quickly removed from the body. That's one explanation. Or another explanation, now this experiment has been done in rat. Maybe human being has higher tolerance to the ethanol, or we are trained by drinking over the time, and we develop fast metabolism at the speed for the ethanol, and we are more evolved, at least for the ethanol. That's another explanation. Okay, other one, let's just say salt, sodium chloride. It's very common the ingredient for our food. Wow, that one is quite relatively low number, 200 gram. Only 200 gram of salt can kill us. It's a little amazingly small amount, isn't it? Only 200 gram of salt may not be very, very big amount if you take them whole at one dose. What to expect? Well, if we take the too much salt in our the intestine, maybe they can absorb the water very quickly from outside through the osmosis. Then maybe our whole body of the water is just pumping into the stomach and intestine. Maybe you are dehydrated and die. Well, the exact the mechanism is other story. But anyway, salt comparing to the sugar is almost 100 times toxic than sugar. Interesting, right? Here are some examples of a natural product. And now we can think, why do the natural products exist? One clue may be, many of those natural products are quite toxic. And it's toxic to the enemies, not to our own body. Or sometimes we can keep it in a safe the area only when you bite them, and then transfer the toxic material to the enemies. That's venom, right? And also, we can think, how are they made? So they are synthesized by our body, utilizing the enzyme system to build these materials. And that means making up these materials is quite expensive, isn't it? It's quite complicated material. And the biggest synthetic group in the world, Cassinicola group, they tried to make many of these natural products. It takes years of those efforts and quite difficult. That means that this is even for the biological system, synthesizing these complicated molecules are quite expensive. Then that gives us some other clues why they are existing, right? So let's think. We have been evolved with the environment. That environment includes our enemies. If you have very strong enemies around, then we need to defend ourselves. And sometimes we can use our physical force to defend ourselves. But sometimes we can use some chemical tools. Those chemical tools, one of those, the one of those good examples are the natural products, the toxic materials. So we generate the toxic material and use them for defending ourselves to compete with our enemies to survive. So that means we have been evolved with the environment. That means natural products are also evolved together with us. So that's why natural products have risen if they still are being produced by the life forms. That means they have some roles in biological functions. So we can define this natural product, any kind of a chemical compound produced by our body. And this natural product, in other terms, we call this natural product as a metabolites, and we can divide this into two big groups. One, primary metabolites, and secondary metabolites. Okay, metabolites are natural products, so it can be used as almost the same term. And metabolites are the intermediate or products of metabolism. And the metabolites are natural product, but usually we restrict the term only to relatively small molecules. Now here's one question that, how small is the small we consider? So usual conventions, the metabolites are usually the organic molecules with less than of 1,500 molecular weight. Those molecules we call usually metabolites. And those metabolites are divided into two categories. The first one is the primary metabolites. So these primary metabolites are directly involved in our normal growth or development and reproduction. Interestingly, there are another class of metabolites. Seems like they are not directly involved in those essential processes, but usually has important ecological function. Ecological means it's kind of in the relationship with other species or environment. Okay, this is somehow indirectly help us to survive. Those are classified as secondary metabolites. Primary metabolites are easily we can think all the building blocks that we use to make our body. It can be amino acids and lipid acids and carbohydrates and nucleobases. Which one is direct product of genetic information here? Can you figure out? Direct product of genetic informations are protein, right? And amino acids are building blocks of those protein. But if you think again, proteins are made of amino acids, but the genetic information does not have direct information how to make the amino acids. Then, synthesis of amino acids is performed by enzymes, and genetic information only defines the structure of enzymes. That means after those machinery system is built and they find its way how to make the amino acids and how to utilize it to combine them into protein. And if a protein itself is not good enough, then we need to add fatty acid or carbohydrate and also build up those DNA, RNA type of genetic material itself. Then we need to have ribose, we need to have a bases, and we need to have the phosphate bond kind of things. So this kind of basic materials, building blocks, which has been used for direct the constructing our body and direct the survival of the role, those metabolites we call primary metabolites. In comparison, secondary metabolites are, seems like even though we don't have them, we don't die right away. But it has some long-term effect. If you don't have it, then we have a problem for the survival. And for example, let's say the plant case, they don't have a strong muscle or the emotional other part. So to defend themselves, usually they generate some toxic materials. If the animals eat that plant, then it can potentially kill the animal. So this is kind of considered as the defensive system, right? So this kind of material is very common source of the secondary metabolites and some of those natural products we use as drugs. Material itself was synthesized to defend the plant, but that subject of those effect of those molecules can be animals or the insects or other fungus or bacteria. Then those common enemies, if they can attack our body too, then we can utilize those natural products to defend ourselves too. That's how this natural product has been used, the sources of traditional medicines. So over those thousands of years of the human history, we looked up and tested those herbs, extract of other plants, and we tried to use it to cure disease or infections. And we found many of those materials has effect, and positive effect. It does not kill our body right away, but it can kill our infected bacteria or other disease conditions. About the middle of those 20th century, now we found very modern other drugs such as penicillin or sulfa drugs, and we started to understand those structure and also its impact into the biological activity, and we started to modify those natural product structures to make it easier. So if you compare those natural product structures with these natural product like molecules, means it's a derivatives of a natural product. These molecules are much simpler than natural product. So by understanding those most important part of those activity from natural product, we can just take that part and develop synthetic pathways to make simpler molecules, but which has almost the same activity or sometimes even better activity. So those kind of generation of those molecules, natural product like compounds, is the initiation of modern drug discovery.